So this is take two, basically. I mean, you wouldn't know unless I told you. But, I wanted to make this video not to like garner any sympathy. It's more just to talk and get it out there because I feel like maybe talking about it might help. And who knows, maybe some people can offer a different perspective. Because there are some viewpoints that I have about the world that are very black and white. For instance, I wake up every day and I think about the capitalist hellscape that we're in, that we all participate in, an exploitative system that pits us against each other for resources that we have plenty of, and even resources that we don't even need. And it's just, it's horrible to think about. Sure, I own shit. I own, toys like Legos. I own jewelry. I own some electronics. I have a bunch of useless shit too. But I don't really buy anything anymore because I've just grown, just disgusted by our consumerist society. I hate seeing ads. I hate seeing commercials or advertisements for products and shit that we don't need. It just triggers very strong negative emotions every time I see it, especially when items that should be human rights, like healthcare or housing, are treated as commodities. And just, it's fucking disgusting for me to look at. We live in a society where humans are not even treated like humans. We're treated like numbers on a spreadsheet. And it's horrible. And there are people who also defend this system. There are a good chunk of people out here who defend this system. You're in an abusive relationship. How can you defend this? I kind of get it. But, now that I'm kind of out of that mindset, I don't see how people have not had the time to evolve and get out of that mindset. I mean, I don't know. Maybe people we all learn at a different rate. So maybe some people are just still trapped in this frame of thought where they think they can beat the system, right? Which some people do. Some people succeed and beat this capitalist system and become rich and don't have to worry about anything ever again. But a lot of people don't, and a lot of people end up homeless. And those people are ostracized because they're viewed as failures rather than the system being viewed as a failure itself. Basically a failed system. We don't even think about that. But, I'm lucky to have a job and everything. I'm not complaining about that. I feel like my mind rots away each day. I went to school for a physics degree and astronomy degree, and I thought that I would do great things with it. I loved tutoring and I wanted to teach, but looking at just seeing what the education industry really is like, I just can't do it. I can't be exploited the way that teachers and professors alike are exploited. Their kindness, their compassion, their intelligence is all abused. And I fucking hate it. I can't do it. I can't fight for, I can't do good for a future where, the system still exists to abuse that future. I can't go and teach the next generation, physicists and tell them to go out into the world when the world's just going to abuse them again. Especially the education industry. I can't be a party to that. As much of a desire as I have to instruct, I would rather do that on my own time. I would rather do that independently, free from someone telling me what to do, and free from someone to write the rules on how I deliver information to other people. As long as the information is given, and as long as it is correct, and as long as I make sure that my students know how to actually solve fucking problems, I feel like we're good. And as long as they know how to apply everything they've learned to new situations, I feel like I have succeeded. But, again, we don't get that system. This is just one example. And, I can't, go out in public without thinking about so many negatives. Granted, this might be a little biased in my, I'm just stating this might be biased because there are times where I go to a coffee shop that's close to where I live. It's in the next little town over to draw or maybe even to write or just to read. And just walking around, my brain just sees a bunch of people who are well off, and I'm disgusted. I can't look at these people in any favorable light, even though I don't know anything about them. I just view people who are shopping around, having a good time. But now, in this city, I am noticing that there are a couple homeless people who hang around this particular area that I frequent. And everyone just walks by them, shopping bags and all. Not really having a care in the world about the person that's suffering in front of them. I see them. I can't help them, though, because I don't know what they need. I don't know their story. As much as I want to help, I don't know their story. And unfortunately, as much as I want to help them, I still need help myself, but mentally. Because I don't feel like I'm in any headspace to really, nurture and help someone out of a very bad situation, But, every time I walk around and I just see these people, I just think to myself, you have all these shopping bags. Do you really need all that shit? There's a person in front of you who's probably going hungry. The person in front of you doesn't even have a home. And yet you buy something that you don't fucking need. Now, granted, I'm no saint. I'm not absolved from this. I buy shit that I probably don't even need, but I feel like I need. For instance, edibles. I take THC, I take hemp products to keep me relaxed throughout the day. Do I need it? I mean, no. I feel like I need it, but there is a difference between feeling like you need it and if you really need it. Granted, what I probably do need is actual help, but that's easier said than done, because I've also tried that before, and I have a very sour taste of the help in my mouth. When I say help, I mean therapy, I mean medication. I've tried that. The medication wasn't working, and the therapy I just feel like wasn't working. And, there was one time where there was a wellness check being placed on me, back when I was in a long-term relationship. And the wellness check was actually placed by my therapist. I was doing a remote session. The cops didn't get there till about 8 hours later. Granted, I went to the gym. I managed to, just recuperate and feel okay again. But it was better if the cops just didn't even fucking show up. I get that, my city's police department is pretty short-staffed, but, I mean, a wellness check, I figure, would have some priority level, above maybe a traffic stop. But 8 hours later, are you fucking kidding me? Don't even bother showing up. Don't. It sends a very bad signal to me. I would rather it be left to my interpretation that maybe they were just so busy and just overwhelmed by crime that day that they just couldn't, be bothered to come by and check on me. That would have been perfectly valid. I would have been fine with that, but, no. But, yeah. I talked to someone, because I'm part of a mental health group on my threads page. I don't interact with them often, but I talked to them today about, something that keeps popping up in my head. And that is suicide. And there's a school of thought that I'm, a party to that believes that this reality isn't the only reality that is out there. I mean, logically speaking, it would make sense that all possible ways of existing are out there. I mean, who knows? We're probably living an infinite number of lives, and we just don't know it. I mean, we don't know when we're born. We don't know when we die. We only know what's in between. So when we die, how do we know that we just don't start this whole, song and dance all over again, just we're a different person? We could be recreated because, in reality, you can change your mind just like you change clothes. It's just hard to change back. I've seen, documentaries or people who are method actors took their roles too far where they actually thought that they were their own characters. They actually became their characters. So if you can change your mind to become someone else, you can definitely also change back. You can reconstruct, for instance, me or you. It will be very complicated, but it is possible. Of course, given the right, wirings in your brain, the right chemistry, because, my brain is different than, say someone else's brain, anyone else's brain. All of our brains are different. All of our brains are wired a certain way. But it is possible to recreate me or you. It's just going to be very complicated. And we don't even fully understand what that process would look like. And maybe we never will. I don't know. But, they use this school of thought, my own logic basically in this case, against me. Because if I were to succeed, have I really succeeded? Because then I would just go to another life where it's a rinse and repeat scenario. And maybe, the other life I go to is actually worse than this one, let's say. Or maybe it's better. Who knows? But that was interesting. I was kind of bested in this, brief exchange I've had with these people in this chat. But, I don't say this for sympathy. I don't say this to try to alarm people. But, I've stated that I am passively suicidal, but that doesn't mean that I don't have a plan. Granted, I have not thought of, I didn't think about this plan fully. I have an idea about it. But, I haven't thought about, for instance, the method of execution. I think because I'm not quite to that point. But, I just wanted to get it out there and talk about it, that I do technically have a plan. And, it's not a quick plan. It's a slow burn type of plan. Whereas there is the option, there is the ability for me to be saved, potentially. So it's not a quick plan. It is actually a slow plan. And I recently was given the idea about this plan. And really, it wasn't explicit. This was just something that I thought of. And technically it is in motion. Because I view our existence as being just so absurd. The way we live our lives and have constructed everything around us. I find it absurd. I find it unnecessary that we have the society that we have now. Because just the way that I'm thinking about it, make no mistake, even if my situation were to get better, that's fine, it's great. That would probably put the damper on the plan, but that doesn't mean that the plan would go away fully. because what's fueling the plan are systemic issues. It is just a whole slew of issues that have to do with the system that we live under. So, that's something I wanted to talk about and mention. I won't state the specifics, obviously, because that is for me to know. And I don't have reason to enact the plan. In fact, I've been given more pause for thought lately if, I should even consider it at all. But technically, the plan is waiting for a accelerant. And that accelerant would be if I were to lose my only form of employment. Because in that case, I do not see a point, and I do not feel like going through this process of groveling, trying to justify my existence to even just work to live, to pay for my essentials, and to have the option to better my life if I want to save money to go to school and further my education, or just save money to eventually have, a life of my own, outside of my family household. Granted, I know that this hyper-individualistic society is not good, but there are just some points in our lives where we just want to be by ourselves and be alone. And I don't really see that happening for me anyway. So, I don't see a point in starting over and groveling for jobs that probably wouldn't even be paying enough to live, even given my credentials. And still, nonetheless, I don't feel like it's going to put a full damper on the plan, because I just feel like these systemic issues will creep back in and fuel my depression to where I'll eventually slip. So, that is the accelerant. But, like I stated before, the plan is not immediate. The plan itself, once the accelerant is actually, once we reach that phase, the plan would probably take months, maybe even at most a year or more to complete. And I don't know. I feel like the more I think about the plan, the more I kind of realize it seems to me like my plan is just my one final experiment to see if I can be saved or if I am just a lost cause. So, but again, I state this, I don't want sympathy, and I don't want people to try to, flood my inbox or anything like that. I just wanted to get it out there and to just kind of briefly give a glimpse into what I think on a day-to-day basis, and just what kind of fuels this idea that, existence in this life, this society that we have is just pointless. I view it all as pointless. You might state otherwise. You might state that there is a way out. And sure, there is a way out for me. Maybe there's a way out for other people who feel the same way. The issue still prevails, though. You've just given them a lifeboat. Or you give them a lifeboat and then, they board a ship, a rescue ship. But they are still not to shore. I feel like once there's enough changes in our society, I feel like then, and only then, will that ship reach shore. And maybe then more people might be saved. But this way of life, the way we exist, the way we go about our day-to-day lives, I don't get it. I don't get how people can also just struggle. Because granted, I know I'm pretty privileged. I'm not going to deny that. But I don't understand how people who are less fortunate than I am are out there struggling for just to even exist. They're not even living. And I don't understand it. Granted though, maybe I just haven't evolved to the point where I can see it. And I hope that I can. Because granted, I will not be the same man tomorrow. I will not be the same being in a week. I will not be the same person in a year. So, I just hope that, I hope that there are enough changes internally for me to maybe see the light at the end of the tunnel and maybe define reasons. But, I just wanted to get it out there. And I'll talk to you guys later.